You are lying to yourself. Right now, in your bathroom cabinet, or maybe shoved under the driver's seat of your truck, there is a plastic box. It is white or red, and it has a cross on it. You bought it because it made you feel responsible. It made you feel safe. You look at that box and you think, I am ready. But let me tell you exactly what is going to happen when the world actually breaks. You are going to open that box while your wife is screaming. You are going to open that box while arterial blood is spraying across your living room floor at a rate of 0.5 litre per minute. And you are going to stare into that plastic container and realise that all you have are 50 adhesive strips for paper cuts and a tube of expired ointment. That box is not a medical kit. It is a coffin. In a grid-down scenario, the gap between a boo-boo kit and a trauma kit is the gap between life and watching someone you love turn pale, cold, and silent. Let's talk about the mechanics of death. The human body holds about 5 litres of blood. That is it. When an artery is severed, femoral, brachial, carotid, the heart acts as a pump that is actively trying to kill the patient. It pumps that vital fluid out of the body into the dirt. You do not have 20 minutes for an ambulance. In a true collapse, the ambulance is never coming. You have 3 minutes, maybe 4. If your plan relies on adhesive bandages and hope, you have 0 minutes. Shock sets in within 60 seconds. The brain starves. The organs shut down. The preventable deaths in every major conflict, from Vietnam to the sandbox, and in every active shooter event in civilian history, come down to hemorrhage, bleeding out. If you cannot plug the hole and shut off the pipes, nothing else in your survival plan matters. Your water filters, your stockpile of beans, your generator, none of it matters if you bleed out in the hallway. Picture the neighbourhood. It is 3 weeks since the power failed. The breakdown wasn't instant. It was a slow slide into desperation. The water pressure is gone. The sanitation trucks stopped running 10 days ago. The quiet suburbs have become hunting grounds. You are tired. You are dehydrated. Your neighbour, a guy named Jim who used to work in accounting, is trying to secure his perimeter. He is reinforcing a window with plywood. He is nervous, shaking, running on caffeine withdrawal and fear. He slips. The sheet of plywood shatters a pane of glass, and a jagged shard 6 inches long slices through his forearm. It's deep. It nicks the radial artery. He screams, clutching his arm, and stumbles into your yard. This is it. This is the test. You run to him. Blood is bright red, oxygenated, and pulsing in time with his terrified heartbeat. You drag him inside. You grab your kit. This is where we find out if you prepared for a survival scenario or if you just prepared for a camping trip. Most people think they are ready for this moment because they watched a movie once. They think they have weeks of supplies. The math usually says they have days. When Jim is bleeding on your floor, you don't have time to guess what you have in inventory. You need to know your operational status before the glass breaks. That is why I built the Protocol Survival app. It doesn't just list gear. It gives you a survival score based on your actual logistics, medical capabilities, and water security. It tells you exactly how long you last before you become a casualty. Stop guessing. Go to protocolsurvival.com and get your real survival score. The calculator is free to try. Do it now, before you need to know the answer the hard way. Let's look at what you probably grabbed for Jim. This is Tier 1, the household kit, the Red Cross Special. Inside, you have adhesive bandages in 12 different sizes. You have some 2x2 gauze pads that are so thin you can read a newspaper through them. You have tweezers. You have tape that doesn't stick when skin is wet or bloody. For a survival situation, this tier is necessary, but it is not sufficient. In the early days of a collapse, infection is a silent killer. A small cut from a rusty fence, if left untreated without antibiotics or proper cleaning, becomes sepsis in a week. Sepsis kills you just as dead as a bullet. It just takes longer and hurts more. So do not throw this kit away. You need it for the blisters you get from hiking for water. You need it for the scrapes your kids get playing in the ruins. But for Jim, for that arterial bleed, this kit is useless. You are putting a sticker on a leaking dam. You need to understand the limitations of Tier 1 immediately. Back to the living room. You rip open a packet of 2x2 gauze. You press it against Jim's arm. Within 2 seconds, the gauze is soaked through. It is dripping. The blood is pooling on your laminate flooring. Jim is looking at you, his eyes wide, his skin turning a waxy grey. He asks you to help him. He trusts you. You open another packet. It's an adhesive bandage with a cartoon character on it, because that's what came in the family pack. You realise the absurdity of it. The blood makes your hands slick. You can't get the wrapper off the tape. The adrenaline dump has robbed you of your fine motor skills. You are fumbling. You are failing. This is the reality of trauma. It is messy, it smells like copper, and it is slippery. Tier 1 gear is designed for dry, calm environments where you can wash your hands at a sink. In a grid-down trauma, you don't have a sink, and you don't have calm. You have panic and fluid dynamics. This brings us to Tier 2, the upgraded home kit. This is where most well-meaning dads stop, and it's better, but it's still dangerous. Tier 2 takes that basic box and adds volume. You bought a SAM splint. You bought a CPR mask. You have rolls of Curlix gauze instead of just pads. You might even have a generic tourniquet you bought on Amazon for $12. We will talk about why that is a death sentence later. Tier 2 is about stabilisation. If Jim had just broken his wrist falling off that ladder, Tier 2 is great. You can splint him up. You can wrap a sprain. You can manage a fever with the extra ibuprofen you stocked. This tier bridges the gap between ouch and call the doctor. But remember, in our scenario, there is no doctor. Tier 2 allows you to be the nursing home, the urgent care, and the pharmacy. But it does not allow you to be the trauma surgeon. And right now, Jim doesn't need a nurse. He needs a plumber to shut off the red flow. I can hear some of you typing the comment already. Sergeant Miller, if it's that bad, I'm loading him in the truck and finding the National Guard. Or, I'm calling 911. That's what taxes are for. Let me stop you. This is the steel man argument. The idea that civilization is resilient and help is always just a phone call away. In a localized disaster, like a hurricane, maybe you are right. But we're talking about SHTF, a systematic collapse. When the grid goes down, the cell towers have backup batteries for maybe 24 hours. After that, your phone is a brick. The roads? They are choked with stalled cars, checkpoints, or people who want what you have in your trunk. The hospital? It is a combat zone of desperate people looting the pharmacy, or it is quarantined. If you leave your shelter to transport a casualty, you are exposing yourself and your family to secondary threats. In this environment, you are the end of the line. There is no cavalry. If you cannot fix it on your living room floor, it does not get fixed. Now we step into the reality of survival. Tier 3. The Bleeding Control Kit. This is the most critical upgrade you will ever make. It is small. It fits in a cargo pocket or a pouch on your belt. It contains 3 things that matter. A windlass tourniquet, a real one, COT CCC approved, like a CAT Gen 7 or a soft T. Hemostatic gauze, which is gauze impregnated with a chaotic agent like kaolin to clot blood instantly, and a pressure dressing like an Israeli bandage. This kit acknowledges the brutal truth: bleeding kills first. If you had Tier 3 when Jim came through that door, the story changes. You don't fumble with band-aids. You see the bright red spurts. You deploy the tourniquet. You go high and tight on the limb. You crank the windlass until the bleeding stops and Jim screams in pain because a properly applied tourniquet hurts like hell. That pain is the feeling of him staying alive. You lock it down. You write the time on his forehead. You have bought him time. Let's replay the scene with Tier 3. Jim stumbles in. You don't panic because you have trained for this. You grab the red pouch. You rip it open. You slide the tourniquet over his arm, way above the cut, up near the armpit. You twist the rod. 1 turn. 2 turns. The blood flow slows from a fountain to a trickle. 3 turns. It stops. The silence in the room returns. Jim is pale, breathing fast, but the pool on the floor isn't growing. You grab the pressure dressing, wrap the wound to keep it clean. You have controlled the hemorrhage. Now you have a new problem. You have a patient with a tourniquet on and no hospital to go to. This is the long-term survival grim reality. You will have to manage that limb. You will have to decide if you can convert that tourniquet to a pressure dressing later, or if he loses the arm to save the life. But at least you have the luxury of that choice. Without Tier 3, Jim bleeds out in 4 minutes, and your kids watch him die. Tier 3 saves limbs. Tier 4 saves lives in combat. This is the IFAK, Individual First Aid Kit. This is what you carry when you have to leave the house. Maybe you need to scavenge for water. Maybe you are on perimeter watch. The threat profile changes here. We aren't just talking about broken glass anymore. We are talking about ballistics, gunshots, shrapnel, blunt force trauma from a collapse. An IFAK takes the bleeding control from Tier 3 and adds airway and respiration management. We use the algorithm MARCH. Massive hemorrhage, airway, respiration, circulation, hypothermia. Your IFAK needs chest seals. If someone takes a round to the chest, the lung collapses. Air gets sucked in through the hole, crushing the heart. You need a vented chest seal to plug that hole and let the air out. You need a nasopharyngeal airway, an NPA, a tube that goes up the nose to keep the tongue from blocking the throat when they go unconscious. This is not first aid. This is tactical medicine. Scenario update. It is week 5. You and a neighbour are checking the cul-de-sac entrance. A truck speeds past. A pop, like a firecracker. Your neighbour goes down. He isn't screaming, he is gasping. He took a round to the upper chest. Pink, frothy blood is bubbling out of the hole. He is drowning in his own fluids. This is a sucking chest wound. A tourniquet does not work here. You cannot put a tourniquet on a torso. If you only have Tier 3, he dies. But you have your IFAK on your belt. You rip it open. You grab the chest seal. It looks like a big sticker with a valve. You wipe the blood away with a gloved hand. You slap the seal on as he exhales. The valve engages. He takes a breath. The air stays in his lungs, not his chest cavity. His color returns slightly. You roll him over to check for an exit wound. You plug that one too. You check his airway. You cover him with a mylar blanket to prevent shock. You just performed a medical intervention that was reserved for trauma surgeons 30 years ago. Now it is your job. I need to pause the action for a warning. Because some of you are listening to this and opening a new tab to buy a $10 tourniquet pack, don't do it. The market is flooded with Chinese counterfeits. They look like cat tourniquets. They look like soft teas. But when you crank that windlass, the plastic rod snaps. I have seen it happen in training. Imagine that snapping sound when you are trying to save your son's leg. It is the sound of failure. You must buy from reputable medical suppliers. North American Rescue, TACMed Solutions. If you bought it on a general marketplace from a third-party seller, throw it in the trash. It is a training prop, not a life-saving device. Do not bet your life on cheap plastic. Quality gear costs money because it is tested to hold arterial pressure. If you can't afford a real tourniquet, learn to make a windlass with a cravat and a sturdy stick. But do not rely on fake gear. It gives you false confidence, and false confidence gets people killed. We have covered self-aid. Now we talk about Tier 5. The Scene Trauma Bag. This is the medic bag. In a survival group, not everyone needs to carry this, but someone does. This bag is for mass casualty incidents, MCIs. What happens if a propane tank explodes? What happens if a vehicle rolls over with 4 people inside? Your IFAK has 1 tourniquet. You have 4 patients and 6 bleeding limbs. The math doesn't work. The Tier 5 bag is a force multiplier. It contains bulk supplies, 5, 6, 10 tourniquets, stacks of pressure dressings, burn sheets for thermal injuries, splinting material for multiple fractures. But more importantly, it contains triage equipment, markers to write on patients, tags. You need to identify who can be saved and who is expectant. That's the polite medical term for going to die no matter what we do. This tier requires a shift in mindset from save everyone to save the salvageable. It is a heavy burden, both physically and psychologically. Week 8. A group of raiders tries to breach the community barricade with a truck. They hit a hidden ditch and the truck rolls, crushing the barricade defenders. Chaos, dust, screaming. You run up with the Tier 5 bag. It is a nightmare. One defender is pinned under the axle. Another has a compound fracture of the femur. A third is walking around in a daze, blood pouring from a scalp wound. You cannot treat them one by one, you have to command the scene. You toss a tourniquet to the guy with a leg injury. Put this on yourself. You direct a bystander to apply pressure to the scalp wound. You focus on the pinned man. He is pale, no radial pulse. He is bleeding internally. You realize you cannot lift the truck. In a hospital, he goes to surgery. Here, on the pavement, he is expectant. You have to make the call to move on to the guy with the leg. You use your supplies to stabilize the survivors. The Tier 5 bag allowed you to turn a total loss into 2 survivors. It is grim, but it is the math of survival. In that chaos, amidst the dust and the blood, do you think you will remember the dose for pediatric antibiotics? Do you think you will remember the triage algorithm perfectly? When the grid goes down, your cloud notes are gone. Google is gone. You cannot watch a YouTube tutorial on how to pack a junctional wound while someone is screaming. You need a system that works offline. I built Protocol Survival to be that system. It stores your medical inventories, your guides, and your protocols locally on your device. It works when the cell towers are dead. It works when the internet is a memory. You need to secure your data now while the lights are still on. Download the app, sync your data, and go offline. Don't let your knowledge base disappear when the power creates a vacuum. We talk about gear a lot. We talk about tiers and brands. But we need to talk about why. Why do you need a chest seal? Why do you need to spend money on hemostatic gauze instead of a new video game? It is not about you. If you bleed out, your problems are over. You are at peace. The kit is not for you. The kit is for them. It is for your wife, your husband, your children. The most haunting thing in a survival scenario is not the violence. It is the look in your child's eyes when they are hurt and they look to you for a solution. And you have to tell them you don't have one, that you didn't prepare. That guilt? That is a weight heavier than any ruck you will ever carry. We prepare so that we never have to see that look. We prepare so that we can be the shield, the protector, the one who stands between our family and the void. A final warning: buying a Tier 5 trauma bag does not make you a medic. Buying a scalpel does not make you a surgeon. If you buy this gear and throw it in a closet, you are just stockpiling expensive loot for the guy who kills you. You need to train. You need to practice applying that tourniquet on your own leg, in the dark, with wet hands. You need to take a stop the bleed course. You need to know how to pack a wound until your fingers touch bone. The gear is just a tool. You are the weapon system. A trained person with a t-shirt and a stick is more useful than an untrained person with a $1,000 medical bag. Do not be the person who has the gear but lacks the competence. That is the ultimate negligence. So, assess your setup. Start with Tier 1 for the daily grind. Build to Tier 2 for the home base. Carry Tier 3 everywhere you go. Build a Tier 4 for the fight. And if you have the team, build Tier 5 for the war. Move up the ladder. Replace the bandaids with trauma gear. Replace the apathy with action. The world is fragile. The systems we rely on are thin. When they snap, you will fall to the level of your training and your equipment. Make sure that level is high enough to keep your people alive. Because at the end of the day, survival isn't about what you have. It's about who is left standing next to you when the dust settles. Stay safe. Stay prepared. Let's go back to Jim one last time. Let's say you did everything right. You had the Tier 3 kit. You applied the tourniquet. He survived the initial bleed. Now you are 3 days post-injury. The grid is still down. This is where the long tail of trauma care hits. You have to change the dressing. You have to monitor for infection. You have to keep him hydrated. The adrenaline is gone. Now it is just the grind of nursing care in a dirty environment. This is why you need the volume from Tier 2. You need that extra gauze. You need the soap. You need the antibiotic ointment. You see how the tiers connect? You cannot have just one. They are a system. The tourniquet saves him in minute 1. The antibiotics save him in day 4. The food and water you stored save him in week 2. It is all connected. If you ignore one part of the spectrum, the chain breaks. And if the chain breaks, Jim dies. Here is your homework. I want you to go to your kit right now. Open it. Dump it on the floor. Count your tourniquets. If the number is 0, you are wrong. If the number is 1, you have none, because 2 is 1 and 1 is none. Look at your gauze. Is it hemostatic, or is it just cotton? Look at your chest seals. Are they vented? Check the expiration dates. Yes, most gear lasts past the date, but if your chemical lights are dead and your sterile packaging is yellow and brittle, replace it. Make a list of gaps. Prioritize the life-saving hemorrhage control first. Fix the bleeding, then fix the airway, then fix the boo-boos. Do not buy another flashlight until you have a tourniquet. Do not buy another knife until you have a chest seal. Get your priorities in order. The darkness is coming, and it doesn't care how cool your tactical knife looks. The grid isn't what keeps the lights on, it's what keeps the monsters out. When the grid fails, the monsters come back. Infection, violence, entropy. Your medical kit is your weapon against entropy. It is how you say no to death. It is how you vote for life in a world that wants to kill you. Don't leave your vote in a plastic box of band-aids.